An investigation now underway after yesterday's partial collapse of a building in the Bronx.
While it's a miracle that no one was seriously hurt, families who lived in the 49 units are now displaced. They're receiving some help. Joining us right now, the city's Emergency Management Commissioner, Zach Iscol. Nice to have you back on Good Day New York.
Great to be back with you. Thanks
So
for
none of
having
those families are allowed back into that building?
Currently. So right now it's an H-style structure. As you can see from the photos, one of the wings is severely impacted. I think today, as the investigation goes on, as we look at the structural integrity of the building, DOB and HPD and their engineers will make a determination if we can allow people back into the other sides of the building.
So that's a possibility today?
Very unlikely, but I think what we really will focus on is we have some contractors out there who will start shoring up that building where the collapse is. And then once that work is done, that likely is when we might be able to bring people back in the building, but a lot to be determined, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done today and in the ongoing days before.
Okay, so obviously you are helping those people who are in that building find shelter. I would imagine that your situation is dire right now because you have a lot of migrants and all the, available shelters.
So I think, the mayor has made clear, we've made clear, there's not a part of the city that has not been impacted by this crisis. So one of the things that happens when we have to vacate a building is we start working with the Red Cross to find hotels for folks to stay in or shelters for people to go in. Not a lot of hotels around the city right now. A, it's the holiday season. B, we have the asylum seeker crisis, but we were able to find places for everybody to stay last night. I'd also say that when events like this occur, it really reminds me how grateful I am for the men and women who work for this city, right? The fire department was on that scene in a minute 36. We had HPD, DOB, the MTA out there with warming buses. DOE, Department of Education, was out there immediately with their emergency response team to help us open up the school for the reception center. And so you see this incredible holistic response that takes place to make sure we're serving the people impacted by this building collapse.
Let's talk about the owner of this building, because I know he did secure a permit to kind of get some construction done on a section of that building, and that's the section that collapsed. What do we know about that, and was there something that could have been done to prevent this?
Yeah, I don't know at this point, right? And I think that part of what we need to do is right now, last night, the #1 priority was life safety, right? And then the next priority was the people who were displaced, making sure that we're able to feed them, making sure that we're caring for them. Some of them might have ancillary medical needs, right? You could have a diabetic who cannot get access to their medication. That was really the priority for the last 12 hours. I think today, as we complete the searches of the building, as we sort of transition to this next phase, we'll start to learn more from the investigation and what maybe could have been prevented, what could have been done better in the past, what might have been missed. But that remains to be seen. The investigations need to take place.
In terms of people watching this morning, a lot of them who might live in old buildings, this one was built in 1927, that is what our city was kind of born and based on. They're probably worried watching that. What would you tell them, and what can they do to protect themselves for something like this happening? What kind of response can the city do for them?
Yeah, so I think one is, right, I would have to defer to buildings on that question, right? I run emergency management. I'm not a building or an engineer. But I know our Department of Buildings takes these complaints very, very seriously. So if there are concerns that you have with your building, you can call 311. Buildings does follow up with those different types of complaints, and they will sort of look into those things. But that's one thing that you can do to try and look and see what issues
I was just wondering about buildings following up. I mean, because if this particular building had violations, did they follow up with those violations that they were corrected?
So as I said, #1 concern in the last 12 hours was not looking for who to blame for here. I think we have looked at the 311 complaints that were filed and some of the complaints that were filed. There were about 5 311 complaints that we can see so far in the system.
In the last, how many?
I think it was the last 4 or 5 years. And those complaints were mostly related to the sidewalk shed and then issues with the construction workers, like not wearing harnesses, not wearing helmets, not posting the permits on the wall. There was nothing related to the structural integrity of that building. And again, I think we need to do the investigation to see what actually caused this, right? There's a lot of different things that could have caused this. We don't know at this point.
Well, somebody was talking about weather. I mean, it was windy, and rainy, but welcome to the new world.
Right. Look, there's a lot of things that could have caused this. Could be weather, it could be something related to the building, it could be any number of things. We won't know until we complete that investigation. I know it's not the answer that you guys are necessarily looking for today, but it's the answer that we will be attempting to answer in the coming days.
Okay, so just for those families that have been displaced now, because obviously those kids are not going to be able to, or they're going to have a harder time getting to school now because they're not in their neighborhood. How much longer do you think they will be out of that building?
So, unsure at this time, right? Again, that we need to figure out what needs to take place in order to move people back into the other wings of that building. Today, we are opening up a new reception center. We had one at the school up the street at PS 390, 396. We're now moving the reception center to the Bronx Community College, which is at 2155 University Avenue. Again, that's the Bronx Community College, 2155 University Avenue. That'll be open at 10 a.m. We've also set up a Nixle, so for text alerts for people who live in that building, you can text BX Collapse to 692-692, that's NYC, NYC, and we will give alerts. And so whether you're in the building, whether you're one of the 6 businesses impacted, we will do all that we can to make sure that we're helping you through this time.
Zach Iscol, the head of emergency management, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Sharing the information with our audience. Appreciate it.